I don't think it's very odd. I don't think it's happened in quite some time where the arbitrator usually has 2 days after the hearing to decide the outcome and the amount. But yesterday, I guess some news came out that he had asked for additional time. And so as of 11:19 local time here in Nashville, we still haven't heard anything. But I will say this, I'm not quite sure what the holdup might be, just for the fact that I don't see, I mean, it's not going to go above his ask, which was like 2.4, I think. And then the NHL mandated amount that the offer sheet or the offer had was, I think, 1.4. Sorry, I don't have that in front of me. But so, I mean, I don't think that it's going to be because they're waiting on some, like, it's going to be like 3 million, and as the rules go, the player elected for arbitration. So the team will get to decide the term of it. So it'll be 1 or 2 years. But they currently right now sit just under $4.1 million. And so, even if it was the team ask at like 1.3, that still puts you down at about 2.7. It could go down to 2. So whoever if the Nashville is still looking for players, especially free agents, such as a Phil Kessel or something like that, even now without Trenin's contract on the books, $4 million, $4.1 million doesn't give them a lot of wiggle room there, especially since the last few years, David Poile has wanted to leave a $3-4 million, gap, underneath the cap. So that way he had some flexibility during the season. But I will go ahead and say that I'm going to go ahead and do my call shot. I think he gets 2 years, 1.87.
Is that a win for Nashville?
Yeah, I think so. This is a guy who's kind of, he wasn't expected to be as much of a contributor as he is. They had some, when he signed his last deal, I believe there was a point where he was, thinking about going over to the KHL. His agent is a guy who's pretty famous with Russian players to play hardball and make big public comments. But I think it's still a win. I mean, just keeping this guy, having him under, for another year or two, I think is great. He's another one of those types you can get in there like a Tanner Jeannot type of a mold where he's a third, fourth liner at best, but he is extremely physical. He's become a little bit more intelligent as a player as far as discipline and penalties. But he's a guy that, we showed that he could score. And then, he showed up for the playoffs when a lot of the players didn't. So
my question with him is like, what is that projection? What are your expectations out of a guy like that? Because he was 24 points this last year, something like that. It's a decent season, middle of the roster probably for the Preds, I'd say. And are you looking for a 30 plus if you're re-signing him? I mean, that's a lot to ask out of a guy like this, probably. Where do they go like, hey, a 25-point season, just match that? Like, what are they looking for, probably?
Yeah, I mean, get credit where it's due. He played on all those bottom lines. He played with Tanner Jeannot. And 24 of those points were 17 goals, which is, pretty high compared to the rest of the team last year. We don't have, he kind of fills in that spot of getting, nearly 20 goals each season like Craig Smith used to. But, I think a repeat of this season would be a huge win. I mean, just even getting 24, 25 points. I don't think that they necessarily need him to be getting most of his points through scoring goals. But, you'd like to see him get to that 30, 35, even 40 level. And I'm sure that the expectations will probably be a little bit higher since they went to arbitration, and he's going to get, again, probably around $1.8 to $2 million. So yeah, you would expect probably 30, 35 points out of that, but I think it's still good. He's a good role player. A lot of stuff he does show up on the stat sheet. So
is there any chance that he's not a role player going forward? Is there any chance that there's another level not yet unlocked for him?
I like Yakov Trenin a lot as a player. He's one of my favorite players to watch. I think we've seen him at his ceiling. He could, there could be some things that grow, but I mean, he's not going to be a guy that you're going to see dropped in on the second line and, alongside Ryan Johansson and Mikhail Gramlin or anything like that, or Nino Niederreiter, for that matter, because he doesn't have that speed. He's not great at exploiting space when it's available, but you don't need that for a guy like him. He's your power forward. He's your fullback. He's getting right in there and he's causing chaos. And so, yeah, I think, this is, I think, a higher, his performance last season was probably higher than most expected him to be able to do. So I think that they've got to be pretty pleased with the fact that they've got this guy who's homegrown and has been able to come up in the system and be played 80 games last season.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Plays with effort. That's what I want to see out of everybody on this roster, because they've just, in these years where they've kind of been middling and all this mediocrity, that's just been a contagion. It's just, you watch them and you go like, really, is this all we got? Are we really putting it all out there on the ice? And
yeah, I'd argue that I saw that a lot personally. This is my personal opinion with the players under Laviolette. I think that the players are all from all of the talks that I've had and the guys that I've talked to on the team, they're big fans of John Hines as a coach. He's a player's coach kind of guy. And honestly, if last year, if there was an issue, it might have been on the other side of this, where there was a little bit too much effort, because all that effort translated into the most penalty minutes in the league. And so
that's true.
Yeah, it's you got that dog, he's got that dog in him, but he's not on the leash. And that could describe a lot of the team, is that they got to get him back on leash a little bit. He can't be running around biting children, all the time. If you're going to play a guy like Tony DeAngelo, then bite away. But other than that,
who do you see as like the guy who is going to provide the most value on this team right now? Because that's where I think they've struggled a lot, just with some of the really bad deals that Poyle has made over the last few years, was just like getting value out of these guys. They just haven't found some of those magic young players yet. Like, where's it? I mean, Janot was nice. Trenin was nice this last year, but like, where is that coming from when you look at this roster?
I mean, so, on most years, you would say, you'd look at the top of the roster and say, why we're not getting the value out of the top of the roster, but your two highest paid forwards and your highest paid defensemen just blew their, they're making. Phil Forsberg's 8.5 now. Duchesne's at 8. Yossi's just a little over $9 million. I'd argue that we got the value that out of those contracts there. But, I think it's going to be in a guy, a similar guy like what Ryan McDonough can bring. His contract's $6.7 million, and so that's one of those guys that he's got the experience, he's got the discipline, the effort that obviously, as just looking at it, as what he's done in the last few years, I think he's a guy that doesn't have to come in and score a ton of points as a defenseman. He's there. He's going to be there probably with Matthias Ekholm or Dante Fabro. But I think he's going to provide, just by him being on the team, not only when he's on the ice, he's going to provide excellent value, I think, just because he's a great combination of size and discipline and vision. That's the word I was looking for. But he's also going to kind of give you that more of that mentor role. So that way Matthias Ekholm can get back to his game. Dante Fabro can develop a little bit more. And so I think what he does, even when he's not on the ice at any given shift, I think he's going to bring a lot of value in there. But that's also me hoping, because again, that's a $6.7 million contract. So you'd hope that he's going to bring you that value.
Yeah. I mean, that's any of those guys, the contracts at the top of this roster just scare the hell out of me. Like like a Duchesne, it was a great surprise, really surprise season, because I had really tempered my expectations with that guy, and he came through. But you just look now, like, can you continue that? Same with Forsberg. Can you actually bring that during these seasons where you're making huge cash? I don't know how I feel about it at the moment, but I'll stay hopeful.
Yeah, I'll give you. There's one player that's already given a ton of value, and it's kind of still been a sneaky good signing, is what the $5 million deal with Mikael Granlund. Yes, he had 11,
true. Yeah,
he had 11 goals last season, which and that's his lowest in quite some time, actually. But 64 points, 53 assists, which is pretty incredible, especially since he's playing on that line mostly with Matt Duchene and Philip Forsberg. But he's been a guy who I've been super excited to see, when he joined the team, just because he has that combination. He's a great passer, like Ryan Johansson is. Ryan Johansson sometimes doesn't get the credit he deserves, because he facilitates better than pretty much anybody on the team sometimes. But, we see that he is very, he's good on defense. He's a guy who's smart. He's going to set up those players, but he's enough of a threat to make sure that he's drawing some of that attention away. And so I don't expect him to regress at all. He may not hit 53 assists, but another 60-point season I don't think is out of the question for him. And I think at $5 million, that's rising above that expectation, I think.
That'd be huge.
Interesting. The 2022 Global Series games. What have you seen? What are your takeaways, Bryan?
Yeah, so this is going to be really cool. This originally got scheduled for 2020, and as we know, some things happened in the world that year, just minor things.
You're gonna be more specific. Okay.
Yeah, I think there was a whole, just like a whole disease thing. I'm not sure what it was, but so they went. Something like that. That they went ahead and rescheduled that, and so they're going to be opening the regular season actually on this European tour. So they're going to start with a exhibition game. Actually, the exhibition game, on Monday, October 3rd against SC Bern. Which fun fact about SC Bern is that